Imagine walking into a place with hope in your heart, a restaurant full of laughter, where everyone seems to belong. You've worked all your life. You've known hunger. You've fought silently to stand on your own feet. And when you finally walk in to enjoy a simple meal, they look at your clothes, not your soul. They judge you before you even speak. Then, in front of everyone, they push you out as if you were nothing. Now stop and think. What would you do if that happened to you? If people treated you like dirt just because you didn't look rich enough? Would you scream, cry, or fight back? Or would you stay silent, knowing that one day the truth would speak louder than their cruelty? This is the story of a man who stayed silent. A man they kicked out in front of everyone, humiliated, insulted, ignored. But hours later, that same man signed a $600 million deal to buy everything they thought he wasn't worthy of. This isn't just a story about money. It's about dignity, about how power means nothing without kindness, and how success means nothing if you lose your soul along the way. If you've ever been treated unfairly, if you've ever been judged by how you look, this story will touch you deeply. Because somewhere in his silence, we find ourselves. We've all been that person, unseen, underestimated, and waiting for our moment to rise. Before you watch this story, take a deep breath. Feel the pain, the injustice, and the strength behind it. And if it moves you, if you believe that no one deserves to be disrespected, share this video, leave a comment, and subscribe. Because the more people who hear this, the closer we get to a world where respect is worth more than money. Let's spread this message together so that no one ever forgets. The person you look down on today might be the one signing the papers tomorrow, to fall in front of everyone. The restaurant was filled with laughter and the soft clinking of silverware. It was a bright afternoon, and every table was full. Waiters rushed from one side to another, serving expensive dishes to well-dressed guests. At the entrance, a man in simple clothes walked in quietly. His shoes were worn, and his jacket looked old. He looked around with calm eyes, searching for a seat. His name was Daniel. He had been here once before, years ago, when life was very different. But now, the same place where he had once been, welcomed made him feel invisible. The hostess, a young woman with a forced smile, approached him quickly. "Sir, this is a private restaurant. Do you have a reservation?" she asked, her tone already sharp. Daniel nodded softly. "No, but I just wanted to have lunch. I can pay." Before she could answer, a man in a dark suit stepped forward. He was the restaurant manager, proud, confident, and loud. "Look at your clothes," he said mockingly. "Do you think this is a soup kitchen? We serve real customers here." People turned their heads. The laughter stopped. All eyes were on Daniel. He stood there, quietly, holding a small leather wallet. He didn't argue. He didn't beg. He only said, "I came here for a reason." The manager laughed. "Yes, I can see that. Maybe to clean the tables." The crowd chuckled cruelly. One woman whispered, "He must be lost." Daniel looked down for a moment, then met the manager's eyes. "No," he said softly, "to remember." That answer made the manager angry. "Enough! Get him out!" he shouted. Two security guards approached. One of them hesitated, feeling something was wrong, but the other took Daniel by the arm. "Come on, sir," the guard said, pulling him toward the door. Daniel didn't resist. As he walked past the tables, he heard the whispers, the laughter, the cruel looks. A child sitting near the door looked at him and asked innocently, "Mom, why are they sending him away?" The mother just said, "Because people like him don't belong here." Daniel walked out into the sunlight, his heart heavy, but his spirit unbroken. He looked back once and smiled slightly, not out of anger, but out of understanding. He had seen this before. Years ago, he had been poor, ignored, and rejected. That pain had once made him bitter, but now it only made him wiser. He walked to his car parked nearby, a black sedan, simple but clean. Inside, his assistant, a young woman named Clara, was waiting. "Sir, are you sure you want to go through with this?" she asked. "They treated you horribly." Daniel nodded. "Yes, because how people treat others reveals who they really are. And I needed to see it again, to remind myself why I built what I built." Clara looked at him in silence. "They don't know who you are," she whispered. Daniel smiled faintly. "That's the point." As they drove away, Daniel's phone rang. It was a video call from his lawyer. "Mr. Hai, the lawyer. Said, the documents for the acquisition are ready. Once you sign, the restaurant chain becomes yours, the entire group, including that branch." Daniel looked out the window at the building fading in the distance. "Good," he said calmly. "We'll sign tonight." He remembered every face inside the place, the waitress who looked away, the manager who mocked him, the people who laughed. But most of all, he remembered how he once was, hungry, humiliated, and determined. He had promised himself that if he ever became rich, he would never let pride destroy his kindness. "Sir," Clara said quietly, "you could have told them who you are." Daniel shook his head. "No, power means nothing if you have to show it to be respected. I'd rather let their actions speak." They drove in silence for a while. The road was long, and the golden light of the afternoon poured through the windows. Daniel closed his eyes and remembered the years of struggle, sleeping in his car, being rejected from job after job, starting small businesses that failed, and losing friends who stopped believing in him. But he had never stopped working. Every failure had built something stronger in him. At the next red light, he opened his eyes and said quietly, "People think money changes who you are, but it doesn't. It only reveals it." That night, Daniel sat in his home office, large but simple. No gold, no luxury, just quiet peace. Clara placed the documents on his desk. He took a deep breath, signed them, and looked at the logo on the papers, the same restaurant name. He smiled, almost sadly. "They will wake up tomorrow," he said, "and realize they now work for the man they threw out." Clara looked at him. "What will you do with them?" "Nothing cruel," he said softly. "They need to learn what respect really means, and sometimes the best lesson comes from kindness." Daniel leaned back in his chair. His eyes reflected both strength and sadness. He didn't want revenge. He wanted change, a world where no one would be judged by clothes or appearance. Because once, that same mistake had almost destroyed him. And in that moment, as the night grew quiet and the city lights blinked outside his window, he whispered to himself, "Tomorrow will be a good day." The return and the $600 million lesson. The next morning, the city woke up to news that spread faster than fire. The restaurant chain that had once rejected a man in old clothes was now owned by a millionaire. The staff didn't believe it at first. They thought it was a rumor. But by noon, new papers arrived with official signatures. A name on the document read, Daniel Hale, chairman and owner. Inside the same restaurant, the manager who had mocked him stood in shock. His face turned pale when the regional director entered and announced, "We have a new owner. Mr. Hale will visit today." The atmosphere changed completely. The waiters whispered nervously, remembering how they had laughed. The hostess bit her lip, feeling ashamed. Even the customers, who had once stared at Daniel with judgment, now spoke quietly, pretending they hadn't seen what happened. At 1 p.m., a black sedan stopped in front of the restaurant. The door opened slowly, and Daniel stepped out, wearing a clean gray suit. He looked the same, Calm, simple, but now surrounded by quiet respect. Clara walked beside him, holding a small folder. The manager rushed forward, his voice trembling. "Mr. Hall? I didn't know. Please forgive." Daniel raised his hand gently to stop him. "Let's talk inside," he said. They walked to the same table where Daniel had once stood alone. Now, everyone watched in silence. The air felt heavy, like a mirror reflecting their guilt. Daniel sat down. The manager remained standing, his head down. "I was wrong," he said. "I judged you by what I saw." Daniel looked around the room slowly. "And what did you see?" he asked softly. The man swallowed hard. "A poor man, someone who didn't belong here." Daniel nodded. "And now you see a millionaire, so you bow. But tell me, what changed? My clothes or your heart?" No one spoke. The silence was painful, but powerful. Even the customers looked away, realizing how often they had done the same in their lives, judging people by appearance, status, or money. Daniel continued, "I built my company from nothing. I cleaned floors, washed dishes, slept in my car, and sold coffee on the streets. I know what it's like to be invisible. But I never forgot to respect people, no matter who they were." The manager's eyes filled with tears. "Sir, please don't fire us. I'll do anything to fix this." Daniel looked at him kindly. "You don't need to lose your job. You need to change how you see people. That's worth more than any salary." He stood up, and everyone followed with their eyes. "This restaurant will stay open," he said. "But starting today, it will feed 50 people who can't afford a meal every single week. And you," he looked at the manager, "will serve them first." The manager's lips trembled. He nodded silently. Around the room, people began to clap, not out of habit, but out of respect. It was not for his money. It was for his heart. Clara watched from the side, smiling softly. When they stepped outside, she whispered, "You could have destroyed them. Why did you choose mercy?" Daniel looked at the sky. "Because when I was broken, one stranger helped me without asking who I was. That kindness built everything I have today. I owe the world the same." They walked toward the car. A group of reporters had gathered nearby, cameras flashing. One of them asked loudly, "Mr. Hale, is it true you bought this chain for $600 million just to teach a lesson?" Daniel smiled faintly. "No," he said, "I bought it to teach myself, to never let success erase humility." That quote spread across every news channel that night. People online called him the humble millionaire. Some mocked him for spending that much just to make a point. But others saw something deeper, a reminder that dignity is worth more than luxury. Later that evening, Daniel visited a small park near the old neighborhood where he grew up. Children played soccer, and an old man sat on a bench feeding birds. Daniel sat beside him. The man looked at him and said, "You look tired, son. Long day?" Daniel smiled. "A long life," he replied softly. The old man nodded. "Don't let money make your heart heavy. When you have too much, give some away, not because you have to, but because you remember how it feels to have nothing." Daniel listened in silence. Those simple words felt like truth. He took out his wallet and handed the man a business card. "If you ever need anything, come to this address," he said. "Ask for me." The old man looked at the card and smiled. "You remind me of someone," he said. "A boy who used to come here years ago, dreaming of building something great." Daniel looked at him with warm eyes. Maybe that boy finally did. The sun was setting, painting the sky in gold and orange. Daniel stood up, feeling peace in his heart. As he walked away, he thought about how strange life was. The same world that once rejected him now praised him. But he knew the truth. The real victory wasn't owning. The restaurant. It was owning his peace. That night, before going to bed, Daniel wrote a short message on his desk notepad. Never let anger guide success. Let kindness be the signature on every deal. He looked at the papers one last time. The $600 million contract that had changed everything. And closed the folder. The value wasn't in the money. It was in the meaning. Outside, the city lights sparkled like stars. Somewhere, people still judged others for being less. Somewhere, someone was being turned away. But Daniel knew that every time one person chose compassion over pride, the world became a little better. And with that thought, he turned off the light, whispered a quiet prayer of gratitude, and smiled. The man they once kicked out now owned everything, but more than that, he had owned his heart all along.